welcome to the channel. This past week was a really busy one for me between work and home, and so I was struggling to find time to even research a story, but I finally settled on one and was in the midst of typing up all the information about it when I came across this breaking story, and I was instantly intrigued. I decided to try to do a quick video on this story. The other story I was working on happened like way back in 1953, so I don't think there's going to be any breaking news in it anytime soon, so that one I think could wait another week or so. But let's get right into the Scareful story of Vicky White and Casey Cole White, the missing Alabama jail worker and the murder suspect. Vicky White is a 56-year-old woman who has worked for the Lauderdale County Sheriff's Office for 25 years. I did see one article that listed it as 16 years, but either way, 25 or 16, it's quite a long time. As the Assistant Director of Corrections, she is in charge of arranging transportation of inmates, including making certain that they got to the courthouse for their hearings. Sheriff Rick Singleton describes Vicky as a model employee. For the past few months, however, she has been talking about possible retirement. On the morning of Friday, April 29th, 2022, Vicky left the jail to transport Casey Cole White. They both share the last name White, but they are not related. So Vicky left the jail saying that she was transporting Casey to the courthouse for a mental health evaluation. She added that after getting him to the courthouse, she was going to see a doctor because she was not feeling well. They departed around 9:30 a.m., but never made it to the courthouse. Because no one was expecting her back right away, it took hours before anyone noticed that Vicky was missing. And Casey? How was it not immediately reported that he didn't show up to the mental health evaluation? Well, that was because there was no mental health evaluation scheduled for him. Vicky's patrol car was seen around 11 a.m. in a shopping center parking lot, but it wasn't until hours later, closer to around 3:30 p.m., that officers really became concerned. When Vicky never returned to work, other officers who were trying to get in touch with her found that their calls were going straight to voicemail and no messages were being returned. Then they realized that Casey White was never brought back to the jail and alarm bells went off in their heads. Both were missing. Sheriff Singleton stated that Vicky was armed with a 9mm handgun, and so the assumption now is that Casey White is armed. The Sheriff's Department has a 2-officer escort policy for inmates like Casey White who are charged with serious crimes. That means that 2 sworn deputies are to be with him anytime he is moved. Given her long tenure in her job and that she was in charge of coordinating transportation, even if other officers noticed that Vicky was breaking protocol and transporting Casey White alone, they were unlikely to directly challenge her. Not noted in any of the articles or news stories that I saw, but something that I know from experience is that typically prisoners aren't transported out of jail without a writ from the court allowing for it. The writ identifies the inmate to be transported, states where they are to be transported to, the date, the time, and the purpose for the trip, and also orders that the inmate then be returned to jail after the trip. Without a writ, deputies typically aren't going to transport an inmate anywhere. You can see where this is leading, right? Vicky White was in the perfect position, perhaps the only position, to not have a writ but still get a prisoner transported somewhere. The sheriff said, whether she assisted him or not, we don't know, and we won't address that until we have absolute proof that that's what happened. We are assuming at this point that she was taken against her will unless we can absolutely prove otherwise. In trying to figure out how all this happened, investigators are looking into phone calls received by Casey White at the jail and any contact between the two while he has been an inmate. The FBI, U.S. Marshals Service, and the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency are all aiding in the investigation. Casey Cole White is 38 years old. He's really tall at 6 feet 6 inches and weighs 252 pounds. He is charged with the 2015 murder of Connie Ridgway. Back in 2015, Casey went on a bit of a crime spree. He was charged with attempted murder of his ex-girlfriend, kidnapping her 2 roommates, first-degree robbery, first and third-degree burglary, breaking and entering a vehicle, animal cruelty, and attempting to elude the police. Those charges stemmed from a home invasion, 2 carjackings, and shootings, which included the killing of a dog and the shooting of a woman, although thankfully she survived. After stealing a car, he led the police on a high-speed chase. When the car got stuck, he then threatened police officers with a gun and also threatened to shoot himself. Eventually, he gave himself up, and in 2019, Casey was sentenced to 75 years in prison. About a year later, in 2020, he confessed to killing Connie Ridgway. Connie had been stabbed to death in her home on October 23, 2015. Casey claimed that it was a murder for hire. He was able to provide details of the crime that had never been released, making investigators believe his story. He was taken from prison to the Lauderdale County Jail. At his arraignment, he pled not guilty, despite having already confessed to killing Connie, and claimed insanity. He then asked to remain at the jail instead of being returned to prison. The district attorney argued for his return to prison, saying that a homemade knife was found hidden in the shower at the jail, and it was believed that Casey was planning an escape attempt. The court agreed that the prison was a better place for him to be held. However, obviously he wasn't held in prison forever, and my assumption is, although I couldn't find any articles stating why he was brought back to the jail and when exactly that happened, but I'm guessing that since his trial was coming up this summer, he had been transported back to the jail to handle kind of pretrial matters. And so once he was back at the jail, I think he clearly saw his opportunity with Vicky and somehow got in good with her to get her to maybe help him escape. Obviously, anyone who sees Vicky White or Casey Cole White should call 911 and not approach them. Vicky is 56 years old, 5 feet 5 inches tall, approximately 160 pounds, and has brown eyes and blonde hair. Casey Cole White is 38 years old, 6 feet 6 inches tall, and approximately 252 pounds. He has hazel eyes and salt and pepper hair and has tattoos on both of his arms. So what do you think happened here? We know for certain that Vicky broke with procedure when deciding to transport Casey alone, and also that there was no mental health evaluation scheduled that day. So did she willingly aid Casey in escaping? Is it possible that threats were being made to get her to help him? How much contact did the two have with one another in the time that Casey was being held at the jail? Even if she did willingly help him, is she still safe? It's not as though you can trust somebody like Casey. The minute he's done needing her help, will he just dispose of her? Hopefully alive, but possibly not. This isn't the first story of a law enforcement officer helping an inmate to escape, and I'm sure it won't be the last, but somehow these stories seem to more often be female officers with male prisoners rather than the other way around, and mainly middle-aged women. And don't point out that 56 might be a bit past middle age. We're going with middle age, okay? What makes that demographic more susceptible to being conned by these sorts of evil men? Although, as we saw in the Sarah Lawrence College cult story, young adults can fall victim to evil men just as much as middle-aged women can. And the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard story seems to show that men can fall victim to manipulative women as well. We humans sometimes aren't the nicest to one another. Well, let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll try to stay updated on this developing story. Let's hope that Vicky White is found safe and that Casey Cole White is returned to prison where he should be. Until then, stay safe and stay careful.